Matthew J. Van Andel, the person who Nulbulge smeared with lies, such as claiming he was an inside guy, doxed his social security number, his medical records, and ultimately cost him his job at Disney. And he hasn't been able to find another job because, in addition to that, there were a couple of publications that, let's just call them irresponsible, decided to repeat that claim without doing 5 seconds of research.
This is a video by Eric Parker talking about this guy who got his entire life ruined just by being hacked. He tried to download some sort of AI generation tool to show AI generation, image generation to his kids. And by downloading this, he ended up getting hacked by a hacker group. And when they inspected his device, tried to see what kind of credentials he had, they realized he was an employee of Disney and used that to actually hack Disney. And then they smeared him, called him an inside guy, and doxed all of his information and essentially destroyed his and his family's entire reputation. I have been told by many people that they simply don't give a shit about their privacy or security online because, and I quote, "I have nothing to hide." This is the reasons why you would want to, this is a prime example of why you would want to give at least somewhat of a shit about your privacy and security. If you ever have a job at any nice job, any kind of company that's decent off, and some hacker groups actually even target smaller companies, if you get hacked and you have credentials into a company and then that company gets ransomed because of you, and then the hackers can say whatever they want about you, smearing you, there's a lot that could happen. And even you being hacked can put your family at risk. Even if that's not the case for you, you don't work anywhere fancy, you can still actually put your family at risk because let's say you have information like maybe medical records or whatnot stored on that device, or you have access credentials saved in your browser that allow you to log into a bank account or whatever. Identity theft is a major issue and it really shouldn't be taken seriously. That sort of thing happens all the time. And you really need to be more careful, not even for your own sake, but for the sake of the people around you. Because if you do have a family like this guy, if you do have kids, then you are even more at risk because you're putting them at risk too. I highly advise you go watch Eric Parker's whole video. It's a very good video. He talks more in depth about this situation. I'm not going to go too terribly into it. I want to talk about some of the very easy things you can do to increase your security and privacy to prevent something like this from happening in the first place. Because a lot of people, I feel like, have this image in their mind that privacy or security is difficult, that you have to compromise, that you have to deal with shitty performance or have to deal with tedious extra bullshit just to get more privacy. No, you really don't. You may have to do one extra step, but it really is not that hard. And I'm going to show you how to do this as easy as possible. Do you have a program you want to run, but you're not too sure how safe it is? First of all, you can go and submit it to a tool called VirusTotal. This isn't an 100% guarantee, because not all the results are always accurate, of course, but it can give you some kind of insight. If you upload a file into VirusTotal and you see a bunch of red, so you see a bunch of detections, then in that case, you could probably assume that this file is malicious. If you see like 9 security vendors pick this up, you can see all the red. Chances are this file is pretty malicious if it has a score like this. But if it only has like maybe 1 or 2 from antiviruses that you don't even know, then you don't even know that company, then you may be able to risk it and it may be fine. It may just be a false positive. That can give you some kind of insight, but let's say you want to actually run the file. How should you safely run the file? Well, you can use a built-in feature of Windows called Windows Sandbox. Literally all you have to do is click a button, click an icon like you're going to start any other app, and you just wait a little bit, and then in seconds you'll have your own virtual desktop that you can test everything inside of. So as you can see, we're just waiting a second for the taskbar to load here. This is a whole nother Windows system inside your Windows system, essentially. And this allows you can run programs inside of here. And if they turn out to be malicious and they try to hack you, they'll be contained inside of here. They won't be able to get out and actually harm your real files or real data. So if I were to run a program inside of here and it turns out to be malicious and it tries to steal my browser data, it's not going to get anything because this is a virtual machine. Now, I do have a separate video going over how to use Windows Sandbox. It's a very simple video if you want to go check that out. I'm not going to talk about exactly how to enable it here. It's pretty simple though. I promise it's not that difficult. But look, I can open up a browser. I can download whatever tool. If I have a file on my desktop here and I want to move it over, you can just right click, copy, and then right click, paste. And you can actually paste inside the virtual machine. So very useful if you want to test a program. Just keep in mind that if you're going to try to run a game under it or something, the frame rate's going to have issues. Another thing you can do is use multi-factor authentication on all of your accounts. 2FA, multi-factor authentication, whatever you want to call it. The name may be a little complex, but it's a very simple concept. After you log into your account, it'll have you open up your phone, open this app, and it'll give you like this 6-digit code that you have to type in that refreshes every now and then. That essentially gives you another method of authentication to prove that you are who you are. So let's say I were to log into my bank account or something. After I put in my password, my email, it would have me enter a 6-digit code. I would log into my phone, open up Authy, and then I would actually type in the 6-digit code for whatever my account is. And this proves I am who I say I am, because that in this situation, a hacker would need a hold of your phone and your accounts, which is a very unlikely scenario most of the time. There is a version of 2FA where you get sent a text message, but this version of security is very bad, very unreliable, very, very awful, and can in fact be worse for your security. So you should never use text-based authentication, because there is a term called SIM swapping. And with SIM swapping, attackers will essentially call up your ISP, pretend to be you, get sent a brand new SIM card under your name, and then they'll be able to get all of your text messages, they'll send a password reset request, get the code, and log in as you. So, and this happens a lot. You may not think this actually happens all that much. This happens a lot. It's very easy to do for hackers. It's really not that hard. Like, I've seen some like actual kids, like some teens, do this shit on fucking crypto millionaires, and they steal millions in crypto and go spend it all on parties and get arrested. But or alternatively, you could just not run shady apps. Literally only stick to reliable, trusted apps, and your chances of being safe is much higher. And just make sure you use up-to-date software. If you're going to try running a shady game off some pirated site, good luck with that. I really don't recommend that you run any software that isn't widely used, isn't actively developed and maintained and updated, because the risk of there being some kind of exploit with that software is high. And like for example, Discord, Spotify, Firefox, stuff like that. They have had exploits in the past, but they get quickly patched typically, and they have a massive team, all these companies behind it, that literally their sole job is to make sure this app runs well and is safe. So take that for what you will. I believe as long as you're using safe, reliable software, then your chances are much higher being safe. And you could also use a password manager. So if you use a password manager, then you could store your passwords somewhere safe in like a digital vault of sorts, and it would allow you to essentially Keep your password safe. You only have to remember the master password to unlock said vault, and that way you don't even know what your actual passwords are. All of my passwords are like 128 characters long, special symbols, uppercase, lowercase, all that jargon. It's actually just a mess of characters. And I use KeePassXC, and I store it in a database file. Anytime I need my passwords, I can pop open KeePassXC, type in the master password, and then you copy the password to your clipboard, paste it into the login field, and log in. This way you have basically uncrackable passwords, and if there's any kind of data breach that happens with the company or whatever service you're using, which happen all the time, then you can easily change your password and all of your other accounts are safe. Because if you reuse passwords across multiple places, if one place gets compromised, it's very easy to check all other services. Let me actually show you a tool. There's a tool called Sherlock, and it is a free open source, very easy to use tool. Literally, if I have your username or even email address, whatever, then I can search for your username, find every single service that you have signed up for. Majority of services, at least, a ton of different services are available on Sherlock, and 400 plus social networks. And I can find all of the ones you have, and then I can check your password against it and see if you use the same password elsewhere. And pretty good chance you do. This sort of thing is like actually not that complicated at all for a hacker to do. And the incentive they get out of this is that once they get into your account, they can find personal data to sell. They can maybe escalate their access, like the hackers who hacked that one guy in Eric Parker's video did, and get a hold of a whole company. Or they can just try to steal money out of your bank account, whatever. I didn't show Sherlock to try to teach you how to hack. I showed you it to prove a point that it is not hard. It's not like hackers have to manually try your login on every social media site. They just run a script to do it automatically. Like, hackers are very sophisticated right now, and it becomes very easy to be some kind of script kiddie hacker that can literally just take people's credentials, and this sort of thing happens a lot. The hackers who hacked that guy in Eric Parker's video really didn't do anything special. It's some pretty low tier shit. But they got lucky by finding a guy who had high-end credentials in Disney, which allowed them to take a hold of the whole company. So especially if you're a member of a big company like that and you're in a higher ranking position, but that doesn't even matter as long as you're just anyone who has any kind of access or sensitive information, which is like everybody, your bank account, family photos, family contact information, medical records of your kids or whatever. As long as you have information like that, it's useful to hackers, and they will go out of their way to try to get it if they know that you're an easy target. Imagine living in a multi-million-dollar house, like an absolute mansion, and literally walk around screaming to the heavens, I have no weapons, I don't have any form of self-defense. Obviously, I think a criminal is going to come in there and end up stealing your shit eventually if you're just telling everyone I don't have a gun or anything. There's more you could do to try to keep yourself safe, but literally as long as you just use better passwords, you don't reuse passwords, use 2FA, and just don't download shady shit and stay up to date. That little bit of advice right there could literally, you could go your whole life never getting hacked. Like literally, it is security for the average person really is not all that difficult. And I really want to prove a point. I'm not trying to say that the dude who got hacked by those hackers, I'm not trying to like downplay what happened to him and say that like, oh, well, he should have just used KeePassXC. But at the same time, I'm just trying to use his situation to educate other people on how on ways to prevent this from happening to them. Because it's not like I want to see more of this shit happening to people. It's bad. I don't want this. I don't want to see more news like this. And I believe as long as people stick to the advice I've just given in this video, your chances of this not happening to you are way better off. Let me know what you think in the comments. That's about it. See ya.